Solidarity, comrades. A change of scenery. I don't know how permanent that will be. I'm going to start doing. I'm going to try on Fridays to be doing a pre-Shabbos stream. You know, like a day before a Shabbos or Shabbat, Sabbath for Jews, and I'm going to stop streaming on Shabbat. Something that I've come to a conclusion on that I don't feel is correct for me to keep doing, to stream on Shabbat or do any sort of laborious activity. So yeah, I'm going to start trying to stream at least once a week, probably more, but I want to try to guarantee a Friday stream. You know, so people and like early too, not necessarily in the evening, but like when people can watch around lunchtime, and you know. But yeah, if anyone wants to come on and have any ideas they want to share, please let me know, because I would really love to discuss some. Hey, Italian communist, good to see you. One of my regular viewers here and a good friend of mine. What's going on? Not much right now. I'm gonna try to start doing regular streams on Fridays, the day before Shabbat. I'm not going to stream on Shabbat anymore. Hey, doggy. And so right now I'm just doing a stream, and I want, you know, people as usual to come in and comment, ask questions. Maybe bring someone on. It depends. If I have some questions for someone who comes on, I would love to have them on a stream. But who knows? We'll see how that goes. We'll see how that goes. And I'm about to have some more coffee too. I forgot to fill it up before we started, but that's okay. So, what have we seen in news? We've seen that the opposition to Benjamin Netanyahu has decided to form a government. And you see the liberals cheering and applauding it. And you see other people more critical of Naftali Bennett. But you don't see them very critical of the other Zionist parties, of the center, left, and center. And, you know, we know what to expect from all these forces that are taking power over Benjamin Netanyahu. Some of these forces, like Meretz, are a direct descendant of one of the longest ruling parties in Israeli history, the Workers' Party, that was also known as Mapai, that was the hey Falcone, do you want to come on? Is there a way I can? Hey, do you want to come on, Falcone? I actually wanted to ask you some things. I'm going to leave a comment to the StreamYard link. It'd be cool if you could come on, Falcone. I want to ask you some stuff, specifically regarding some recent events in Canada involving First Nations and also Indigenous questions in general, if you'd like to come on. So, oh, you can't come on the stream, you're in the car? Okay. That's okay. I do want to have you on here because I haven't platformed any Indigenous people or First Nations people or any Latino Indigenous people on this channel So I think it would be really good to have your perspective, especially given the news of what's come out recently in Canada. So Canada had these quote unquote Indian schools that were meant to be sort of something similar we had in the United States, which was to assimilate First Nations and Native and Indigenous people into Western culture. This sort of assimilation idea, sort of trying to breed them away and destroy their culture through assimilation. That's something Jews often have to deal with, and so in Canada, one of these schools that this system lasted until 1964. This wasn't that long ago, not at all. They found 215 corpses of Indigenous or First Nations children in a mass grave at one of these schools. And it's just so obvious what this colonization mindset does, and what it has done, and how there are still, for lack of a better term, skeletons in the closet regarding this, and that these states that exist are literally on the piles of bones of children. So I think it's something that we really have to understand, and I can't speak for the indigenous people and their indignation of this sort of thing, and the literal rape of their culture and destruction of their people and the theft of their land. And we really have to come to terms as settlers. Oh no, the MLs aren't going to like this, but we really have to come to terms as settlers and where we are. And we have to support national cultural autonomous movements, Black nationalists, the Navajo Nation, indigenous people, the Bundist movement. We have to support institutions like People Fighting for La Raza. Even if you don't agree with the tactics of a lot of these people, you have to understand that the only people that can dismantle this system are not the ones who created it, but the ones who have the most stake in destroying it. And so as settlers and communists and white people, we have to we can't take a forward role in these struggles. In the US, it lasted they found 200 bodies of indigenous children. Yeah, it lasted even longer in the United States, but we really have to take a back seat as white people to the indigenous, the struggles of the colonized people. I think a lot of MLs fall short because they have the right idea about imperialism for the most part, but I think a lot of them pay lip service to decolonization, but a lot of them don't actually know what that means and what land back and decolonization means. And because it means different things to different people and different groups. But what I do know for a fact is that we don't give meaning to it. I don't give meaning to it. The white MLs don't give meaning to it. The only people who give meaning to it are the colonized people themselves, who give meaning to these terms and these struggles. And so as white people, we have to take a back seat. We're not going to lead. We're not going to be in the lead of any radical change in the United States. We can be right by their side, stand in step with them, show our solidarity, and throw down with them. That's what we can do. But we're not going to lead it. We're not going to tell them what to do. And we should fall in line with what they decide. Because it's not our decision. It's really not our decision how people shake off the shackles of colonialism. And I think that anyone, as flawed as the national question by Stalin was, I think any ML who's read that and then done further study and realizes the updated conditions of the world can come to the conclusion, that same conclusion. I just feel like what's missing for a lot of MLs is having those people will be leading it, talk to them and let them know. I mean, they don't want to listen. And I think that's the inherent chauvinism that people that people of settler stock are imprinted in their head. This Anglo box, this bourgeois baggage. There's all sorts of ways to say it, but I think that what is really important is that white people try to understand it better. And I think the only way we can understand it better is by shutting the fuck up and listening. And that's why I want to bring on people like Falcone. Because Falcone is an indigenous person. And also a communist. So that would give us a very enlightening class-conscious perspective on what decolonization means to people like her and what we should be doing in order to combat it on the micro and macro scale. These are tactics that are arising right now out of the roots of organic practice inside the United States and elsewhere in the colonized world. And when I say the United States, I don't mean the United States is colonized. I mean that there are nations and cultures and peoples colonized within the United States. And it's a very, very unique and peculiar condition that no other state, except for maybe Canada, can really compare to what has been happening in North America in general. Can really compare to what has been happening and the way that people have decided to exercise their struggle for national cultural autonomy. And this is where I get to something that I have not publicly said yet, but I am going to say now, is that what MRN, Maoist Rebel Network, and the Federated MLN, Jason Unruh, the Demarchist, the Bundist, the PSFM, the Inglesists, Jason Unruh, Comrade Net, Fellow Traveler, Mason Steiner, Red Scare TV, Danky Kang, FVK. These people have come to a conclusion that there is going to be a new multipolar vanguard, a united intercommunal anti-fascist action, a struggle for national and cultural autonomy, a united front. But this is a united front of a new type. Got a nickname for America, the Prison of Nations. The Prison of Nations. Yo, that is right. It is the Prison of Nations. The United States is the Prison of Nations. And it says inside, no, we're a melting pot. And yes, many people have intercultural, interfaith, interethnic families and backgrounds and stuff, and that also gives us very unique conditions. But it is a prison of nations. It was never a melting pot of white people and everyone else. It was a melting pot of everyone else, and white people sometimes, through their power, participated in it. And so, just as the Russian Empire was called 100 years ago. There you go. Some historical materialism right there for you. Yeah. And look what happened. The Bolshevik fucking revolution happened. And all these Soviets for these nations and autonomous oblasts and autonomous republics within a Soviet this. It wasn't perfect. Do not get me wrong. It was very flawed, but there was this precursor of the idea of national cultural autonomy. And we really need to be pushing this idea, because I really feel like that the national question by Lenin and Stalin is deeply outdated, and it was flawed from the beginning. It's correct on a lot of things, and it was literally a pioneer for the idea of decolonization coming out of the non-colonized world. So that was very interesting manifestation. But then we have people like Frantz Fanon coming around decades later, who is a colonized person. You know, his homeland was colonized by the French, so he spoke French. Even his name, Frantz Fanon, it's a French name. And you know, so this guy started talking about in The Wretched of the Earth. I highly recommend everyone read The Wretched of the Earth by Frantz Fanon, and you'll have a really much deeper understanding, because it takes elements from the national question. Frantz Fanon was a Marxist, and a very intelligent Marxist. But what he does is he takes it from the understanding of a decolonization sort of standpoint, as someone who has been under imperialist colonialism, as opposed to just imperialist actions of a different sort. Now, you know, there was a time when imperialism and colonialism were synonymous, but these lines started to blur, and so imperialism began to have a new, deeper meaning when Lenin came about. But that also was long before the national liberation movements of Africa really took swing, and of Asia really took swing. And so, and they were just birthing in Asia, I should say. And so you're left with a void in the analysis of imperialism, because of that I feel was filled by someone like Frantz Fanon and other theorists. I mean, I know the word settler brings up a lot of bad thoughts. It makes you think of Sakaists and Rame type folks. I mean, the book Settlers has things in there that are uncomfortably true. It also has things in there that I don't feel like are dialectic enough, but it also was written for a time period that was the post-Soviet world, the Reagan years, into the, you know, when the fall of the Soviet Union during the Gorbachev years, and the decline of international communism, and then into the 90s. And this idea came out when it was the new unipolar world, the single imperialist monolith with no one to challenge them. And then you had, you know, shock doctrine economics across the world, and neoliberalism took its hold. And the world, whenever Jay Sakai wrote Settlers, was very different than what it is now. So it doesn't really hold up to scrutiny today. And I don't feel like it's a necessary book, because when you have The Wretched of the Earth by Frantz Fanon, that's, you know, I feel like he was a lot more, I feel like that analysis is able to be adapted to what we're looking at in the 21st century. And I think a group that has a good understanding of imperialism, while I don't come to the same conclusions as them, obviously, are people like Third Worldists, people like Jason. And I think it's quite interesting and compelling. And I think what's great about having this sort of multipolar movement is that we can dialectically come to truths between each other's ideologies. You know, I'm an ML, I support China and Yugoslavia and all these places, but I'm coming to a common understanding with anarchists, demarchists, anti-revisionists, Maoists, and Third Worldists, not Gonzaloites. I will never come to an understanding with Gonzaloites, specifically ones outside of Peru. I have no issue with Gonzaloids inside of Peru today. There is this one militarized group that's more just drug trafficking, but there is a much smaller group that has really learned from their past mistakes, which I think is interesting. While I'm critical of Maoists in the third world, when they're carrying out people's war, I'm hesitant to condemn anything like that. I mean, I understand the will of these people trying to fight back and their desire and stuff. I disagree with their tactics, and I feel like some of their history is pretty dark and needs to be reconciled, especially with the people of their countries. I don't think it's my place to tell them how to do that. Hey, Ramiro, good to see you. Hopefully, I'm going to have Ramiro on soon. We might be talking about Kabbalah and dialectics. So, hey, Comrade Freak, yeah, you can join. Let me, sorry, I was going on a little rant there. Let me throw the link in the comment. There you go. And I need to read Franz Fanon. It's really good. The Wretched of the Earth. Go there first. It's really, really good. You'll love it. Gonzalists are crazy online. Oh yeah, I feel like Gonzaloism outside of in the West, outside of some pockets of like really small, intense weirdos, it's a very online phenomena. 1,000 armed people are no little. Yeah, I mean that's a lot of people. Okay, it looks like we have a guest, Comrade Freaky. Add to stream.
Hello. How's it going, Comrade? How's it going?
Going well. It's going well.
That's good to hear. May I ask, what's this stream about? Is there any particular topic that is going to be covered on this stream?
No specific topic. It's just the pre-Shabbas stream. I'm not going to be streaming because I'm Jewish. I'm not going to be streaming.
Oh yes. Oh, how stupid of me! I should know this. Sorry, I should know this. Oh, sorry.
It's just a general stream, and
yeah, of course.
It's like a stream of thought.
Is it Thursday? It's
Friday. It's Friday now.
Yeah, of course. Because it's Saturday. Because I'm in Australia. It's fucking 24-hour time zone. So Saturday here in Australia. It's like
I could totally tell by the flag and the accent for sure.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's about 2 in the morning in Australia, and yeah. No, what are you talking about? You're talking about I just joined, so I don't know what we should.
I started talking about the news about what happened to all those indigenous First Nations kids.
Oh yeah, I heard that. That is a tragedy. When I heard, I think, fuck, man. I mean, to be honest, Comrade, it doesn't surprise me because that's Canada's a settler colonial nation. I'm not surprised because this may sound devoid of empathy, but the thing is, this should not come as shock as someone who is an indigenous person of a settler colonial nation, like an actual like America or Canada, particularly the two countries that stick out like sore thumbs in settler colonial nations. Not America, because that's the big, everyone wants to jump on America and say this. But particularly, you should look at Canada and Australia. Those two have pretty strong soft power, as in basically they project themselves as friendly, egalitarian nations, particularly Canada.
Yeah.
Particularly Canada has this notion of being a more friendly country than America or something like that, even though historically Canada was in some aspects way worse than America. I mean, way worse. I mean, to this day, literally, I know there's an act in Parliament of Canada where Canadian Aborigines are the only Canadian Indigenous people, the only people that still have identity cards. Like, there's a special identity card to. Yeah, I know. There's an identity card system only for Indigenous Canadians, and that reminds me. That's kind of like the passport in apartheid South Africa. Now you have to show a passport of your waist and
Yeah,
shit.
exactly. And before the Bolshevik Revolution, Jews also had a special thing. Even if they'd lived there for thousands of years, they had a foreigner specifically on their passports in Russia that they had to have. They were never considered Russian
Yeah,
until the
I mean,
Bolshevik.
yeah, that's quite interesting. The thing is, Marxist-Leninists should focus more of their time looking at Canada and Australia, particularly because those two countries, especially Australia, just look at Australia. Australia has really dark history. I'm not joking. You think it's all cute and cuddly with the koala bears and nice beaches on the fucking east coast?
It's a dark history. And uh, are you an Indigenous Australian? You're muted, Freaky. I don't know if he can hear. He probably has to do something. But yeah, Australia is just as culpable, and same with New Zealand. With the Maori people, the indigenous people of
Yeah, so
Australia. Oh, it's okay. I
uh,
was just going to
yeah.
ask you if you yourself were an indigenous person or not.
I am Indigenous Australian. Of course I am. I am. That's why I have that. But the thing is, Australia is a settler colonial nation. But I'm not going to go strip down to Jay Sakai fucking bullshit levels like that and say, oh, fucking white Australian Anglo-Saxon proletariat meanies. Well,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
thing is,
I disagree. I disagree with the conclusions to settlers a lot. I feel like a lot of it is undialectical. I think it does iterate some truths, especially of that time in some conditions. But I think that, like I was saying earlier, a much better decolonizing settler book is The Wretched of the Earth by Frantz Fanon, which is much more dialectical and Marxist.
yeah. The thing is, Settlers is a very specific book targeting American settler colonial, like in Pacific, that region. So any person that's a psychiatrist in Australia should not at all read it because it does not make a lick of sense in Australia because Australia's material conditions are different to America's material. And I can say it, I'm going to hammer down. Australia, from its inception, the modern nation state that was Australia was founded as a penal colony, a prison island, where the British sent prisoners who were either Irish rebels, Chartists, early trade unionists, and the list goes on and on. They sent all the prisoners down here, and on the way, it was not a fun trip. On the way, prisoners were tortured on these ships so badly that they lost their minds and basically were convinced they were superior. Like they interpret this kind of evangelical Christianity, thinking that Christianity would be superior to the Aborigines of Australia. They were tortured so badly. The thing is, they were tortured, and then they were brainwashed into thinking they are superior Christians and they're superior human beings, and they were used as foot soldiers against Aboriginal Australians. These people who were once Irish rebels and early trade unionists and people who were poor, like proletariats who committed a crime, they were just damaged brainwashingly. They were just destroyed to be used as for foot soldiers for British imperialism, British colonialism.
And
That's why Australians have this devoid, particularly white Australians, have this devoid of empathy, especially towards Aboriginal Australians, because historically they lost their empathy because they were tortured on the ships here. Their ancestors, because the thing was, their torture was so severe, it still goes on biologically, genetically for ages, and it still affects Australians, especially white Australians to this day, who don't view Aborigines as human beings. They view Aborigines as lazy people, or name that slang, name that dirty word that would be called by the Aboriginal Australian. But the thing is, there's also a new dimension as well. In the last about 40 years, Australia's been accepting people who fled from anti-imperialist countries from here. Specifically, Australia took a big influx of Vietnamese people who were pro-South Vietnam. They went to Australia. They literally went to Australia when the revolution won in Vietnam. They went to a big mob. I'm not joking. There's a massive Casano community of South Vietnamese exiles, and they bang on like these South Vietnamese people. I know I'm dividing, but I'm just relating to Australia a bit. I'll just get back to Aboriginal Australia. But a lot of these people, a lot of the people you may assume that are Asian Australia are actually people who fled because they were, they're literally Kasanas. Like, for example, you've got Vietnamese people who supported the dictatorship in South Vietnam, and then you got people who support Tiananmen Square, and June 4th is like today. Like people who support June 4th, like who were protesting in Tiananmen, and they fled to Australia. And literally, the Prime Minister at the time had crocodile tears, like saying, "Oh, these protesters are getting killed in China. We'll accept them in Australia."
Let's give a perspective on the type of people who were involved in Tiananmen Square, just to give it. So these are mostly students in Beijing that were funded by the National Endowment of Democracy. This is no secret. And if you listen to their interviews, you can say that they think their fellow Chinese people are stupid, less than human, horrible. And during that day, international students from Africa and India were burnt alive, hung, torn to pieces by these same people. And so, of course, they fled. These people were going to be lined up and shot for their crimes.
Yeah. I know Australia's become a bit of a haven for exiles. I don't know, for the last 40 years exactly, since the first exile, not exiles, they should be called fucking prisoners, criminals in their own respective nations. They fled. These criminals fled their nation and came to Australia, particularly people who are from Asia, basically Southeast Asia or China or North Asia. They came to Australia because they knew, that's that's a country that the Australian government would, fucking treat them like fucking, and the Australians like, oh, those poor Asians, those poor Vietnamese, those poor Chinese, they escaped the authoritarian regime. Welcome to the lucky country, Australia. Welcome to the lucky country. Even though it's not even a lucky country. Luck's run out, mate. 20 years ago. I don't know what people... they call Australia... Trust me, you think American exceptionalism is bad? Look at Australian exceptionalism. We are fucking just worse than American... Like, how America's like the home of the brave, the land of the free. We're the lucky country. We're the most luckiest country in Asia. We're better than every other Asian country. We're richer than every other Asian country.
That's definitely white chauvinism, if I've ever heard it. Colonizer chauvinism. And also Falcone just mentioned they had a very interesting interview, or not an interview, but an article. It was Anti-Imperialist Alliance from Ireland did an interview with a Maoist from Vietnam, and they talked about the South Vietnamese dictatorship, which I think is, any Vietnamese person, especially those who had family who fought for national liberation, has a deep understanding of it. But I think that article that you read will be interesting since it's from the perspective of a Maoist. Even though I'm not a Maoist, I think it'd be interesting nonetheless.
Yeah, I haven't watched Maoist videos or Maoist things for a long time because online Maoists are like something else completely. Like they bring on this. I wouldn't say vibe. They bring on this fucking it's like comedy, but in a cringe way. Like it's almost laughable half the time.
Yeah, I want to point specifically to like the online Gonzaloites.
Yes, I know what you mean.
Who uphold like three worlds theory and shit. It's insane. Those people aren't are not comrades in my opinion. Like I can work with, level-headed Maoists. I can work with level-headed anarchists. Anyone with a level head who is fighting for justice. It's like, let's do it. Let's fuck some shit up. But whenever it gets this really online, like I want to win and be correct type of culture, it's like I don't want any part of that. Oh, that organization was called Anti-Imperialist Ireland Action.
But
Interesting.
let me get back. Literally to this day, I'm not joking. The racism in Australia, like there was this poll, right, that was done last year, and they interviewed Australians. I don't know which demographic, like white or something. I think white. I don't know, but they interviewed Australians, and literally, this poll said a negative view of races. Like they had these Australians who had negative views on races. Like this is a poll they done. Look, if I can find it somewhere, it's on Discord somewhere. They done the poll. On top of the list was Chinese, Iraqis, Lebanese, Sudanese.
Wow, that's
That was the top.
excessively racist.
I'm not joking. The top of the list was literally Arabs, Chinese, or Africans.
Oh my! Oh, that
And also,
pisses-
I'm not joking. And also on that list, there's actually 80% of Australians actually. This is in the poll they done. Apparently, and that's the top. That's the top tier. And then you get down. Apparently, then this went about. Then 18% of Australians have a negative view of Americans, which is quite interesting. 80% of them, yeah, they have a negative view of Americans, which is quite interesting. To see as a
that is
Western nation.
interesting.
I'm not even joking. 18% of Australians have a negative view of Americans, but the top list was fucking. I'm not even shocked because those three groups have been basically race baited, just been talked about.
Yeah. I heard the Lebanese get a fucking hard time down there.
They do. That's why they all stick together. The Lebanese and Australia, they
But
all stick
there's
together.
even they even have like a short-term insult towards them. And I don't want to say it, but it's like Lesbos without the S, and it's horrible.
Yeah, I know.
So, can you keep letting these people know about Australia for a minute? I have to get my coffee and get my dog something.
Yeah, oh good. Well, I don't know what they're gonna ask me.
Whatever they're asking, you can answer,
yeah,
but you can ignore them and just keep talking about like.
No, oh good. It's just when I saw that poll, I was thinking that really makes sense now because those three groups have literally in the media, no joke, in the last about a decade, those three groups of people, Africans specifically, there's a large Sudanese population in Australia now. Actually, a pretty large one. They came in the last about 10 years. I understand what this bloody imperialist conflict made them come here. Then you got Lebanese who have been coming here to Australia about since the Lebanese Civil War. There's a large community of them in Australia, and also Chinese, which it's historically a lot of Chinese historically for thousands of years have known about Australia. So it makes sense that Chinese would come to Australia because they've been coming to Australia for 1,000 years now. But to see those three groups, Sudanese, Lebanese, Iraqis, basically, Lebanese, Iraqi, so basically generalized, basically, because Australians sometimes can't tell the difference. So basically Iraqis, Lebanese, Sudanese, and Chinese. And both of them, and you know how much percentage was? Half the population has a negative view. Half of Australia has a negative view of these people.
That's just open racism. Like it's not like Americans would fucking lie on their polls, but Australians seem to be kind of proud to see these people as lesser. That's fucked.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just I don't know how to, like, sometimes
Gordon asked, why are the Sudanese in Australia? The Civil War?
I want to know, like, there's been a lot of Sudanese in Australia in the past decade or so, and there's been there's been a lot of fucking dramatization, like drama, like, you know, fucking spin in the media, saying, oh, there's Sudanese gangs in Melbourne attacking Melbourne people because they're gangs and they do drugs, and they destroy the Melbourne community.
Yeah, it's typical race baiting. It's no different than the Islamophobic headlines. It's no different than the racist headlines of America that says, you know, African American thug instead of just saying man. You know, it's the same sort of thing. It's built so deeply into our cultural hegemony. It has to be destroyed. It really does.
Yeah.
And yes, there
Yeah.
was a civil war, and there still is conflict happening in Sudan.
Yeah, that's why I think a lot of the Sudanese people came to Australia because of the civil war there, and also Lebanese and Iraqis. The Iraqis have been coming here a lot. I think since, I don't know if they came during the 90s or post Iraq war. I would not know about the Iraqis because, you know, but the Lebanese have been in Australia since the Lebanese Civil War started. Like when the Lebanese Civil War started, a huge amount of Lebanese people came to Australia. And those four groups, actually, surprisingly, all those four groups, actually, the Lebanese, all those four groups actually contribute a lot to Australian society. Actually, as, you know, the proletariat, because the Lebanese have contributed a lot. In, like, if you, I know this may sound like a stereotype, but it's a bit of a stereotype in Australia. A lot of the Lebanese people, they work in construction. They build houses because, you know, they're good craftsmen. You know,
Right.
Lebanese. You know,
The
because they know.
Lebanese have been building shit for thousands of years.
Yeah, so that's why they have this stereotype of Lebanese good construction worker, and like basically these people, these same people who contribute to Anglo-Australian consumptions, like they contribute to Anglo-Australia's consumption. They themselves get victimized by the white media in Australia. They get called name after name in the media posts, especially if you go on Australia's version of Fox News, Sky News.
I know about Sky News.
Sky News.
That's a Rupert Murdoch affair, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is Rupert Murdoch. Like Fox is owned by Rupert, and Sky News UK and Australia is owned by Rupert Murdoch as well. Trust me, you think Fox News is bad? Watch Sky News. Sky News is, you get to see it.
All I hear is people from Australia and the UK just saying boycott this trash rag. Italian communists said we have the same racism problem with African immigrants, and it really gets me mad. Yeah, I think one way you can really see that it manifested in a very public way is how Italians have treated Mario Balotelli for his entire life. And for people who don't know, Mario Balotelli is an African immigrant raised by Italian parents his entire life in Palermo, Sicily, and he has always his whole career had bananas thrown at him, been complained when he made the Italian national team, always seen as a troublemaker and bad, but it was really just pure racism. And you know, the reason he acted the way he did for so long was because he was constantly at war with trying to prove that he was Italian. His name is fucking Mario Balotelli. The dude is Italian. Anyway, Freaky is probably doing something real quick. And Gordon said, the whole immigrant thing in Brazil is mostly chill, although Islam seems to be evil in some communities. Brazil is a very multi-ethnic society, that is true. Though there is racism, you know, Afro-Brazilians and indigenous Brazilians get the bad end of the stick. But I'm sure it's a whole different dynamic there. Very different than the Anglo colonization. Yeah, Mario is black. He's 100% African by blood, but culturally he's Italian. Yeah, he is Italian. Yeah, he his whole life he was raised by Italian adoptive parents in Italy, in Sicily too. Like that's a deep culture there. Well, the America people that tell me I should go back to Mexico when these settlers who say that I should pack their bags and go back to Europe. I mean, that's the best response you can have. If they say, hey, go back to Mexico, you say, I didn't cross the border crossed me. Y'all came here and made borders. I was here already. And, you know, y'all go back to Europe. And that's the best response you can have to white people telling people to go back to Mexico. It's just like, what are you talking about? These people are from this land, this continent. You go back to Europe, cuck boy. I'm not going to put that comment up because I don't agree with it. I'm just going to ignore it. You still there, Freaky?
Yeah, I see that comment. So I'm sorry, it's around about 2 in the morning. I'm still drinking alcohol, so it's around about
That's
5.
cool. That's cool.
Yeah,
I'm medicating myself, just not on camera. So no worries. Lo, I say you hate immigrants. Great. When do you leave? You hate immigrants? Great. When are you leaving? It's like you can use their same logic and they say, "Oh, you don't like America? Well, why don't you move to North Korea?" I was like, I would if I could. That'd be based. But but it's also sort of the same idea. It's like, well, if you don't like the immigrants, then fucking leave because they belong. Fuck you. The fact that most of the population here is Islamophobic to some extent, and there's also the ancestral fear of West African men stealing our women. I'm serious here. Some people think it. Yeah, Italian society is deeply tied to racism, and there's a deep racism towards Libyan people, and Africans and West Africans who have immigrated, but also the history of the colonization of Italy. You know, they still have a feeling of greater feelings over Libyan Italian people, or even Italian people that are part Libyan, or even who have lived there for generations and are just ethnically Libyan. They don't see these people as the same or equal, and this is a characteristic all across the Western world. I don't think that any of the Western world, the white Western world, I don't think any of it is some kind of anti-racist paradise. I think that every single one of them has deep, deep racism ingrained inside of them that can only be smashed when the ideas and actions of when colonialist culture and ideas and colonialist actions are smashed and imperialism as a whole is destroyed. That's the only way that our culture can change, because as it stands, our culture is the bourgeois culture instilled by everything is an imperialist and colonialist culture, and this is the case in everywhere. Europe sees itself as the civilized center of the world, and it's not. I mean, all of Asia is a rising dragon. Africa is a burgeoning power. I mean, the Middle East. If imperialists weren't there, it would be it would be one of the most powerful regions in the entire world. So these places are starting to break off these shackles of the invaders and the imperialists and the occupiers. We're going to see the Western chauvinism uh, challenged and on a mass scale to where it cannot be ignored anymore. That Western chauvinism is simply an abstraction of colonizing people. Have you heard of what Gaddafi did to the 50 Italian models? God bless him. Inshallah. Yeah, Gaddafi gave 50 Italian models a Quran and told them to study Islamic values. What a base Chad thing to do. What a fucking Chad. What a fucking Chad. Well, I'm called a Western and a Western chauvinist. You're a colonized person, Falcone. You're a colonized person. You're only Western in the sense that white people own your people's land. You're orientated to the West, but you're not Western by culture or values. You do have some of, the Western cultural hegemony, like we all do, but you're not Western at all. You're a colonized person. And it's a different concept. Literally, you're like, this is literally my land. What are you talking about? This is mine. You can't fucking kick me out of here. Oh, jeez. I fucking hate it. I really do. Well, as a Westerner myself, I know what I must do. Even though my philosophy and faith is not Western, I certainly am. I certainly am. Oh, I miss Gaddafi. What happened to him was just the most blatant crime of imperialist aggression.
It was. It really was. Like, when what really turned me to radical politics?
Wow, that's awesome.
You know what turned me into radical politics? When I saw Gaddafi's dead body on the newspaper. That's what turned me.
Wow.
Like,
yeah, I remember at that time we were in the middle of. I used to be a Maoist, and I was in Austin, like in the middle of this Occupy movement shit, and then I saw that, and I was like, oh, I was so fucking angry.
I mean, when I saw it, I'm like, this. Like, when I saw him, it was the most shocking thing I've ever seen. And I was like, when about that happened in 2011. I was 10 at the time. I was 10, and I saw that on a newspaper. It was all over the Western world. Every single Western newspaper, even in China, had the dead body.
Yeah, it was sick.
It was really like when I saw it, that just changed me completely. And
yeah,
that's why. And now I'm here pretty much. I'd say, yeah, Libya changed me. Like thinking about Libya, and yeah, seeing what happened to Libya, like something. Even though I was too young to see what happened in Iraq, Libya was kind of had a similar thing to me with Iraq. Because I was like, we're about 2. Because I was born in 2001, the year, September 11. So I didn't see Iraq or September 11. The only thing that really changed me was Libya. That was fucking shocking.
Falcone just asked, I have a question. What is Shabbos? Shabbos or Shabbat or Sabbath is the Jewish Sabbath on Saturday. Gaddafi, what did I do to you? Literally, he said that. Oh God, that makes me so sad. Do you think that indigenous people engage in blood and soil politics? No, I think they engage in liberation politics.
Yeah, they do possibly. Yeah.
Blood and soil politics is some Lebensraum shit. That's a whole different ballgame. Indigenous people aren't calling aren't calling for the mass genocide of white people.
No,
No,
they're not.
no. And land back means different things to different indigenous people and groups. Like we don't know what this entire process is going to look like. The politics are very organic, and they are liberation politics, and it has
Yeah.
nothing to do.
Same,
It,
same in Australia. Some indigenous tribes. Sorry, just no, I don't want to interrupt. Some indigenous tribes have different political movements, not like because of different tribes and stuff. Because of tribalism in Australia, different indigenous tribes have different ways of achieving liberation. Because the thing is, they had to deal with the thing called the state, and the state is very strong in Australia. Both the federal government and the state government is very strong. So different tribes have different ways of achieving liberation. And there's only a little bit of tribes left in Australia because of the genocide of Aboriginal Australians and the enslavement. There's only a little bit of tribes left. The majority of Aboriginal languages and the majority of Aboriginal people who have a connection to a original language that's not English would be where I'm from, the tropical north of Australia, like up north.
oh,
That's where
it's hot.
it's hot. It's very much hot and sweaty during the rainy season, but in the dry season where it's night when winter comes in the southern hemisphere, it gets cool, but it's still hot. But
So,
majority of
do you think that Indigenous Australians can learn from like the movement of Papua New Guinea?
what, West Papua in particular, West Papua or Papua New Guinea? Which one are you?
The one that Australia occupied for a long time.
Oh, you mean Papua New Guinea? Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know much about Papua New Guinea and liberation. I really don't know about that. I know a bit about West Papua because West Papua is very interesting because they're both
Yeah.
Papuans. They're both Papuans, but
Yeah,
West Papua.
exactly. I believe that West Papua should they should unite. Maybe not under a unitary state. Maybe like a confederation or federation or something. But I think
Yeah,
that I think
because
that think about how much more how much that would do for the working class of the entire island to unite and create a government that has their interests in mind instead of disparate interests, especially in
yeah,
Indonesia.
yeah, because I agree that that I do agree with that because I don't know why Papua is divided between West and Papua New Guinea, even though it's the same, literally the same people. They speak a similar language, but they're divided. The reason is because West Papua, aka, used to be Dutch, owned
Mm-hmm.
by Dutch East India Company, and
Mm-hmm.
then East Papua used to be German, then became an Australian colony until 1975. So yeah, it's basically divided between and then legacy of it. Basically, you've got Papua New Guinea. Papua New Guinea used like the eastern Papua. The Papua New
Yeah.
Guinea government used to be I know it's starting to link with China now, but when it first started, it used to be basically a puppet government. Basically, they gave token independence to East Papuans, and basically
Mm.
they put in stooges. Basically, Papua New Guinea. I don't know if it's. I mean, I think it's still today a puppet government, but it's got a bit more independent in the last 30 years. But you know what the interesting thing is, Comrade? I've got an interesting story. Um, Now, around about that region where Papua New Guinea, there's a place called Bougainville. That's what the island and the Bougainville
I do
people.
know about Bougainville and the Bougainville independence
Yeah,
movement.
Liberation Army. I do know about that.
Yeah, that's
I,
interesting.
I do because I know about that basically on the island had the biggest copper mine in the world. Literally, it was the biggest copper mine in the world at the time, and it was the biggest copper mine in the world at the time on Bougainville. And the funny thing is, it was owned by an Australian company, but that Australian company was owned by a British mining company. So particularly the British mining company that owned the copper mine. And the people of Bougainville, they are connected to the land both spiritually and in need of food and stuff.
Yeah, that's absolutely true, and it's just a symbol that these places were like Indonesia and Malaysia were key for providing tungsten and rubber to the Dutch and British empires, especially during their imperialist days and through World War One and World War Two. And so these places were extracted for all of their natural resources and all of their worth, and then finally given nominal independence under imperialist purview. And so I think that Indonesia was doing a good thing until Sukarno was overthrown by Suharto and bad stuff started happening.
Yeah. So I just want to get back to Bougainville. Basically, it was the biggest copper mine. It's not like a deep copper mine. It was a flat bed copper mine where, big circle and with big trucks, stuff. And it polluted the waterways where people in Bougainville used to fish and were connected to the land. And the indigenous people were pissed off. And a lot of them worked in the mine. So a group of people, the indigenous people formed an association for their land, like a land association, saying we want compensation. Like they literally asked the mining company for billions of dollars in compensation because of how bad the pollution was. Like it destroyed. Like to this day, it's going to be polluted for 200 years. That waterway because of it's a forgot I don't know my period. I should know my period. It's a chemical that was used in mine, but it's fucking like it looks like something from an alien planet, and the water is polluted and the walk bed's polluted. It's going to be polluted for 200 years plus, and the people were like really pissed off about it. Like they wanted billions of dollars in compensation, and the mining company laughed at them. The executives laughed at them. They went to Bougainville and they laughed at the indigenous people. They were like they didn't give a toss about the indigenous people, and the indigenous people were like, "Oh, if you're gonna laugh at us, we're gonna take action." And the first thing they did, the mining workers on Bougainville, they had enough. Like they just had enough because their waterways were polluted to basically they can't fish there. They got dynamite and they blew up. You know those power lines, those really big power lines you see?
Yeah.
Yeah, they blew that up and to stop electricity going through the mine. And
Nice.
the mining company was like, oh shit, the indigenous people are wising up. And then they contacted the PNG, the Royal Papua New Guinea Constabulary for, all right, get the white police there. But the white police couldn't beat the people, so they had to bring in the army, and the army failed. and these people in Bougainville, right? The people in Bougainville didn't fight with AK, didn't fight with machine guns. They fought with homemade wooden guns.
Yeah, I've actually seen some of these Bougainville guns that are preserved in a museum now, and it's like next to the guns that they build by hand in Afghanistan. Yeah, it's so ingenious. It's so smart. Very dangerous, but very.
Yeah, I know. It's basically like a crossbow gun, and they fought a army with helicopter like Kerr, like American made helicopters, like the same helicopters you saw in Vietnam. There's Iroquois helicopters you saw.
Oh yeah.
They took down one helicopter with that. I'm not joking. They would.
Rob, here's what you know. No matter what you take from indigenous people, no matter what resources you keep from them, they're not gonna fucking give up. They're gonna fucking fight till the end. This is for their entire culture's livelihood. Also, let me acknowledge what's happening in the chat, because let me just say that indigenous people can't be racist. They're allowed to voice their frustrations any way they want, like saying "Whitey, go home," or anything, or saying I don't really like white people, that's fucking okay, as long as we understand it here that we're all communists here. Looks like Freaky dropped out. We'll try to, if he comes back, we'll try to bring him back on. Oh look, it looks like he's coming back. I have a funky setup here. Yeah, sometimes the browser gets messed up and people hop out, but yeah, indigenous people are allowed to voice their frustrations about white people. There's no problem with that. It's not racist. Like David said, racism is a systemic uh, is based out of systemic oppression, and being prejudiced against a group of people is not the same as being racist. Um, Racism is a systemic and oppressive condition. White people are not victims of race-based oppression. Therefore,
But yeah, oh yeah, sorry. Let me continue about the Bougainville. Let's say Papua New Guinea government that was being supplied by Australia, and Australia got involved. There's no joke. Australia got involved and sent, I think a colonel or a general or something. They send like technical support, like military aid and stuff to Papua New Guinea, like the public government in Papua New Guinea, to basically kill the Liberation Army and the people of Bougainville because of the copper mine, and basically, because of capitalism, pursuing the capitalist mode of production for a mining company, and they were losing and every time they lost, the Bougainville people captured AR-15s and stuff, so they kept on update like they kind of stopped using. They kind of start using AR-15s, and they were pretty fair in combat. Like these rebel soldiers, even though they're guerrillas, it was like Australia was having a Vietnam quagmire. There was a Vietnam like I'll call the Bougainville War Australia's Vietnam. It was a quagmire, and when they took over the island, they pretty much done a blockade on the island, like an armed blockade with boats, like armed boats going around the island, and a lot of people starved to death and died of medical conditions. And the Bougainville people, in response to that, went to look for traditional medicine. They had to utilize the material conditions to use traditional medicine to survive, because that's the only medicine they used. They used traditional medicine to survive, and they relearnt the science that their ancestors used. Instead of relying on Western medicine, Anglo or Western medicine, they used traditional medicine, and it was very effective. Even though a lot of people died at first, when doctors, makeshift doctors and people who relearnt, used their material conditions and learnt their traditional medicine again, it was just as effective as Western medicine in treating people. So it's pretty remarkable. It was like a 10-year blockade, and these people had to be pretty much, it was basically self-reliance on the island. It was pretty much self-reliant on traditional medicine. They had to grow traditional food. Like they had to have a 10-year blockade. And then what really ended was a combination of a couple of things. One, the PNG government actually had a military coup, because the soldiers were sick and tired of the war. They didn't want to kill people no more. These soldiers had enough. Like they were sick and tired of dying or killing people. Like the PNG, the rank and file, they pretty much rose up, and they had this colonel or something. And this bloke literally just mutinied. He mutinied from the government, and pretty much PNG had a military coup, and basically they took out the prime minister and another thing is the PNG army was failing in killing or being effective of putting down this liberation army. So the PNG government was literally in the process, or basically they hired mercenaries, like those Blackwater, but it was called sandlined mercenaries. Like they literally hired mercenaries and it costs millions of dollars, and literally it costs like a lot of money, a lot of GDP of PNG, and people were pissed off. The military was pissed off, and then soldiers, a combination of soldiers not wanting to kill people no more, and basically it just backfired on the government, and a military coup happened, and basically, um, basically they went into peace process, and the condition is, uh, I think, and the condition would be basically Bougainville would be a self-governing region, a special region in Papua New Guinea, because it was part of Papua New Guinea at first, but it was not. It was just like an island, but it was given special status, and people can vote on Bougainville whether to be independent country or not, and for the PNG government and other entities that were involved in the war to compensate the people of it, and basically in turn that to compensate them in development of the island, and so it was very interesting about that conflict.
Okay, David said I silenced him. I gave you a 5-minute timeout. You just couldn't wait 5 minutes. You said you hated babies. Yeah, that's why I gave you a 5-minute timeout. I like babies. Fuck me, right? Like I said, David, you can express your frustration towards white people. I don't mind. Just leave the babies out of it. David, my dialectical master. Oh God, the comments are not great right now.
Trust me.
How
long are you gonna do the stream? And are you gonna do it any more long? Because how long you plan to do?
No, I'm just gonna do it until I get tired of it.
Oh good. I wish more people can join.
Yeah. I'm not the biggest or anything.
Yeah, but me too. I'm not the biggest as well, but a lot of people watch and comment on my video. I'm actually nearly 100 subscribers now. I'm not that far from 100 subscribers, so I'm surprised I nearly got 100 subscribers. Even though I don't. What?
I've always subscribed.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Everyone decide the freaky if you want a badass indigenous Australian communist dropping truth bombs over in the Down Under.
Yeah, of course. Definitely dropping truth bombs.
In general, what does "for the win" mean? Oh, FTW means for the win.
Yeah.
Connor, do I support native Zionism? I don't support Zionism of any kind.
Me too. I don't support. Me too. Zionism is cringe, and
Zionism, native Zionism is not what native people are asking for in their liberation, except for David. If that's what David wants to go for, then more power to you.
Go ahead, mate. Do
more power to you. More power to you. You have a wonderful Jewish name as well. I love it.
The interesting. I'm literally in my city. There's no synagogue or no nothing. There's no Jewish diaspora, but there's a lot down in Sydney or Melbourne in Australia. But where I'm from, there's no Jewish diaspora here. Like there's no Jewish. There's no synagogue. There's nothing.
Where I live, there is almost no diaspora. My temple is in. I live in the countryside, and my temple is in the big city, about an hour drive away, San Antonio. So, it's not so easy. Yeah, these comments are silly. I think that David is fine complaining about white people. I just didn't want him saying I hate white babies. That's silly. This is a serious stream for serious comrades. And I don't think it's very intuitive to compare compare native liberation to Israel. I think that's an aspect
That is proper dumb. I'm just saying it's proper dumb.
Well, let Comrade Freaky speak on it. This is a colonized person.
Because what this person is advocating, or because his name's David, right? Literally, he's advocating something that's proper. A non, what's the word? Is non sequitur a word or an oxymoron? What's a good word to put it?
It's an oxymoron. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it's an oxymoron. In the fact that it's Zionism in its historical condition is a European settler colonial ideology founded by atheists who wanted, to be settler colonialist pricks.
A bunch of self-hating Jews that allied with anti-Zionists.
Yeah, pretty much. And let's emphasize a key point. Originally, they didn't want to power. They could colonize any bit. Like they wanted to be in Uganda or Patagonia or Madagascar. Like literally any bit of land that British or French had, they would go. But they chose Palestine because they would spin it. They spin what's the word? A discussion. A something that just to gain more legitimacy of saying, oh, this is where Jews are originally from, we're the first people, blah blah blah, and the thing of it, and as Comrade Connor Gills would explain a lot more better than me, because this comrade has a lot more authority, but I'm just learn from other people. But let me emphasize this. Zionism in its historical roots is a settler colonial ideology, a European. So for an indigenous person to advocate a form of Zionism is counterintuitive to liberation of yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I was in the chat and I was gonna say this. He said this, that he wanted like he was talking about like he doesn't like white people, and then he was talking about like white people, like basically talking about like how they put like indigenous children in these like types of schools and shit like that. And then one time he said that he wants like something of like basically a Israel for natives, and then I asked him to clarify, does he mean like Palestine for the Arabs? And he said like Palestine for the win or something like that, because I didn't know what the acronym standed for. And now there's like this whole feud in the chat. But also Zionism is also just a fascist ideology that's LARPing as like some ideology that embraces like Judaism or something shit like that. It's just a fascist ideology.
Yeah, it's certainly a fascist ideology by every characteristic of it. I mean, these people are white supremacists. These people are committing genocide, and they are creating Lebensraum. That's what they're doing.
Also, off topic. Hey, Comrade Freaky, long time no see. The last time I saw you was on a stream with a Nukasin.
Yes.
Or now the other.
Yeah, I'm still on these streams. I actually went on this stream a few hours ago, but now I'm on this stream. So I've been on a couple of streams.
On this stream. Yeah. I gotta get you added on. Do you have Discord, Freaky? I gotta get you added on Discord so we can like.
I think he has Discord.
I do have Discord. I'm not on that much often because on the Discord servers I'm usually on are cults, and I try to avoid Discord cults because of the pure and unadulterated cringe in the emphasization.
I'm not gonna name any names, but I'm in a server that gives me cult vibes, and it's just a
blast. I was in some. Can I tell you which one of them was?
Yes,
one was called the Mouse Lounge. The other one was called the Six Head Steady Circle.
Oh, 6 heads. This one. Oh my god. 6 heads. was
Six Head
harassing
Study
me
Circle,
in
I
some
left, and
travel
the Mouse
circle. And
Lounge, guess what? They got so mad that I'm friends with Jason Unruh and Black Redguard. They got so mad, and also that I'm friends with Finball. And also, I'm a Maoist, and like I don't recognize Chairman Gonzalo as like the sixth head of Marxism, the fourth sword, or any of that shit. Like the only person
Chairman
who has the
Gonzalo
right to make that claim,
synthesized MLM. He is not a sixth sword.
like basically, I just say this: he's like Peru's greatest communist and shit like that. That's all I say.
I understand defending, his legacy and everything. And also, I'm definitely not doing drugs, but Falcone.
I'm not doing drugs, so I get prescription.
Yeah.
Falcone. What was I gonna say? Fuck me.
Now,
Are you
you're talking
What?
about cults, Discord cults.
Oh.
You're about to speak about
Yeah.
Discord cults.
Like Gonzalo cults? Like it's basically Gonzaloism, some
Did,
political
did,
hair.
did he freeze just then, Connor? Alright, did you hear what I just said?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can hear y'all.
Yeah, you're talking about Discord. You're about to say something about Discord cult. You're in or something like that?
Yeah. So there's this person from like the Six Head servers who's like a really super obnoxious Gonzalo.
Are you talking about this guy who starts with the Discord name with an E? I think it was. Yeah, I met him. He kept getting on my nerves about me leaving Six Heads. And the Mouse Lounge.
We were on Trav's server, and he just kept bothering me. And then he went to my DMs and started bothering me. And I was like, fucking leave me alone. And then Trav came out of nowhere, and he was like, was someone bothering you? And he Antifa chutted that guy out of the fucking server.
Oh, can I say something? He's also a Vietnamese Maoist. It's kind of funny, not gonna lie. He claims to be a member of the Austin Red Guards or some shit like that, but
there's no way. I know those people.
He said one of his nicknames was Texan Maoist, and he's also based in Texas. But
that's pretty much on the know.
Wait, can I say something? Right now, he's currently living in Vietnam right now. That's what he told me one time.
That's what he told me.
Literally, as well as I was gonna say this, it's kind of funny. I was like, who's this Gonzaloite that Trap banned from his server? Because I know I was banned from Trap server for other reasons.
That was my fault.
Yeah, I know.
You know, David the second said something very interesting, very edgy just then.
Oh, David,
God. Needed an indigenous version of Pol Pot. Hell no.
Oh, so David, you're an Anprim.
Yeah, he's a narco-prim. He wants to go into the country, abandon the city, go in the countryside, and kill people with glasses. Yeah, that's fucking...
Oh, yeah, anti-glasses gang.
Anti-glasses
gang. God. Not gonna lie. I always, I met some Pol Potists, I don't even know how the fuck that is a thing. For real.
I've met that genuinely is a I have a comrade from Cambodia who is a Maoist actually, and he has a deep love for Pol Pot.
Not gonna lie.
I don't think he knows the full story around that, or he doesn't believe a lot of it. And I'm not gonna argue with him because he's Cambodian.
I was gonna say this, here's the thing, people think the Khmer Rouge were some Maoists, and that's not even true. Jason debunked that.
They weren't Maoists at all. They just used that as a label. They just used that as a label to
Pol Pot was an opportunist, LARPer.
Yeah. I mean, he became an anti-communist whenever the CIA started giving him money. So
I was gonna say this. Really, the fall of Kampuchea was due to basically the Maoists. Their stance on it was I heard it was something the fall of Kampuchea was basically like a part of Soviet social imperialism and some shit like
That sounds familiar.
I
No,
do
but
believe
the
it's true
but
that
the
social
social imperialism part is something very similar to something that other people say. I'm not gonna lie, but now
Oh,
Oh,
I
you're
know
talking
here
about
we're
like
not going to
basically
agree
people
on
talk about
social
China and
media.
stuff like that.
no,
I don't
I know here we're not going
these
to agree on social imperialism and stuff very much, but
I
what I
don't
can
believe China is social imperialist. That's me. I believe they're
I
like
don't even believe
imperialist, but
social
that's all.
imperialism is a thing, but
Me too. It was made up by some larpy Maoist in 1974 to feel enlightened.
yeah, that was pre MLM Mao Zedong's
That was
propaganda.
made by Mao and Hoja, where they talked about social
Yeah,
imperialism.
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. That was during social imperialism. I think Mao talked about it. I don't think it was Mao's idea. I think it was an idea in his name. I believe that because before during the time of Lin Biao, they didn't call the USSR social imperialist. They called them revisionist, but still socialist. But
Right. I'm about to go now. Be right back. I'll just listen for now.
that's cool. But not social imperialist. But after the death of Lin Biao, when the Gang of Four came to power, that's when they started using three worlds theory, and out of that came social imperialism, written in Mao's name. I don't believe it was Mao. I believe it was his wife. This is a good point. China supported the Khmer Rouge. China, during the Gang of Four era, did support the Khmer Rouge. They truly believed that social imperialism was real, and that the Soviets and their allies aligned governments were more of a threat than American imperialism and Western imperialism. They truly believed that. So when Pol Pot called himself a Maoist and was at odds with the Vietnamese and Laotian revolutionaries, then that was a natural regional ally for China during the Gang of Four era. Oh, that's cool, Falcone. No worries, no worries. You gotta get your stuff. I know what it's like being that age. It ain't easy. Um, you gotta adapt and overcome. I have a precarious setup right now, but yeah, China did, and even into the era when Deng Xiaoping took power, they uh, made and I'm someone who supports Deng Xiaoping. And they made the very very terrible mistake of invading Vietnam. But Deng Xiaoping changed, and that created animosity until the age of Xi Jinping between the two countries. And it wasn't until just a few years ago that they're even sort of trying to normalize relations again. That the Sino-Vietnamese War was a very terrible time, and it was a product of terrible Cold War politics and paranoia, and a
It
time of
was.
great division and downward spiral in the international communist movement.
hmm It was. I mean, what interesting? May I bring up a topic? Interesting topic.
Yeah, just 1 second. I know you don't like. I know you don't like Dung Falcone. We all know you're a Maoist. I am the revisionist here. Dung, Tito, these are my
Me
comrades.
too. Me too. Please call me a revisionist.
Yeah, I don't take offense. I don't take offense, but we are
Actually,
all of
yeah.
us are united against the primary goal of destroying the primary conviction of imperialism and its disgusting form that it takes in colonialism. That is our primary goal, and we will fucking defeat it. And then we can talk about Deng Xiaoping thought after that. Or you can talk about it now. Pol Pot is cringe, absolutely. Anyway, let's hear what you got to say, Freaky, while I try to fucking get this to stand up.
Yeah. One of the things that would be interesting, I wish the Soviet Union done, was introduce all gas. You know what all gas is?
No.
OGAS. OGS. Well, basically, it was going to. You know how in the planet economy they use paper to plan the economy, like they use paper and stuff to plan, like they used paper to, like they when it was in the planet economy, they in the Soviet Union they used paper. Well, one of the things they were going to use to be more technologically advanced than the West was introduce a computer system for planning.
Mm.
And I was thinking about it in the 60s called OLGAS. It was going to be basically a Soviet internet where civilians and planned economy would be linked and used for both education for the people and for the economy planning and resources and stuff. And I was thinking about it in the 60s. The only thing that the reason why the Soviet Union could one, didn't have much of the technical support, and two, the resources, because they didn't have the technology, the manpower, the intelligence, or anything to produce that type of internet, that type of network, because of the resources. And the United States was scared if the Soviet, because I remember reading once in a CIA leaked declassified document. The America was scared that the Soviet Union would introduce all gas, because if they introduced all gas, it would have been game over. Because the Soviet Union would introduce something more advanced what the capitalists had at the time. If they introduced a planned economy with computers, like if they introduced socialism with computers, then they had a big leap in technology, a big leap in the mode of production. If they introduced computers in the economic base and the social base, that's why the United States funded Apple and Microsoft, because the United States government was fucking scared and shit itself if the Soviet Union introduced a computer system, because the Soviet Union would have been ahead of the United States and had a big leap in technology if they introduced all gas.
Wow, that's really interesting. Ferguson said they implemented it a bit. They didn't have much faith in it due to its experimental nature, and probably its resource cost too. Ferguson also said thoughts on cosmopolitanism. I don't mean that's a word that can mean a lot of different things. I believe in cosmopolitanality as laid out by the Bundist and PSFM, but I don't believe in. I think when you mean cosmopolitanism, do you mean like politics that are focused in the cosmopolitan and that ignore like rural and unintegrated sort of populations? I'm not really sure what you mean. The USSR was based until Gorbachev, Falcone.
Yeah.
Anyway, no. I know what you mean, Falcone. All of us here hate Khrushchev.
Yeah, Khrushchev was a bastard. He was a bastard.
Some of us have positive views of people like Brezhnev, especially because he helped so many.
Brezhnev was based. Brezhnev was based because he helped a lot of liberation struggles in Africa, especially Afghanistan. He helped Afghanistan. He helped Angola. He helped the Vietnamese. So
I'm not really versed on what that means, Brazilian cosmopolitanism. But if you want to explain it, like in the comments, go ahead. We might learn a little bit of something here, which is what we're here to do, is learn and talk and grow and try to hopefully spark interests and some things in some people, light fires in your heart, hopefully.
But literally, the thing is, the interesting thing is, some. Wait, I'm just trying to think. I don't know. The Soviet, I just could imagine. Now, I know this may sound a bit utopian, but could you just imagine if the Soviet Union introduced that hypothetically, if they had the resources and stuff, and the scientists and the manpower? Oh my God! Like literally, the Soviet Union could have won the Cold War, because they literally had, the United States would have lost, because until
Glasnost and Perestroika, the USSR's production was starting to increase again, and they were on track to surpass the United States eventually in production, and
Actually, that yeah,
and not to
yeah.
mention during the Brezhnev after the Gang of Four era and before Gorbachev came in, the China and the Soviet Union were starting to warm up their relations again. And imagine if they would have reunified the international communist movement and everything, and things would have been way different. Things would have been
I know, but historical. But we're living the present right now, and the present's depressing, but also at the same time has a shining hope in the end of the tunnel. I mean, we can't lose sight of the shining light in the tunnel. Because, my God, could you imagine? Could you imagine? Because I can imagine this right now, comrade. This decade, there's gonna be so much revolutions going on. I'm not joking. I can imagine. Like, I know this may sound like schoolyard like something a bit schoolyardish, but what countries you would see having a revolution or going towards revolution this decade?
Well, that's a good question. And I definitely see it coming from the third world or the global south, as some would call it. Places I certainly could see having like a complete transformation of society. India would be one. I would say that a lot of nations in Africa as well. I think because right now we see the hegemony of the United States and Western imperialism being challenged by other forces, China being the largest. And what this is doing is giving breathing room to these countries to be able to decide their futures, and through an organic process that anything that we know through organic process, people will come to correct conclusions if the right forces are in place. So I think that the biggest potential are places like South Asia and Africa, especially all of Africa, from North Africa to the Cape. I think that these places have the highest revolutionary potential right now. Oh, and the Philippines. I agree. The Philippines is ripe. The central government is not able to help the people, and the people are discontent with it.
I see a revolution happening in Europe. You know what? Which country I definitely put my cards on to have a revolution in Europe?
Yo, Ramiro.
Hello, Ramiro.
Yo, what's up? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
What's up, comrades? I just wanted to give you guys a shout out. I'm on my way to get my haircut, go to the barber, but I was really digging the conversation you guys are having, and it's really cool to hear different perspectives, and y'all talk as principled leftists, as revolutionaries, even though there's disagreements, but to be able to just come together and talk is really cool, and I just wanted to give y'all a shout out.
Cool, thank you, Comrade, thank you.
How you guys? What are you guys talking about?
We're talking about revolutions happening this decade, like around about 2020s or 30s. Like, which countries would have revolutions? Hypothetically, like what countries we see having revolutions?
Yeah, just a bit of speculation.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see what India is doing. I mean, India has had the biggest union strike in human history, 250 million people, the largest communist party, the CPI, Marxist, which I've gotten a lot of slack from the Maoists for defending because they're not as pure as the Naxals, but it's all good. And the CPIM is really cool because they organize people in the urban areas, not just in the rural areas, but in the urban areas where the majority of the Indian population lives. They're doing some really great work. They're led by a lot of women, LGBTQ people, and they organized the largest strike in human history. And India is slated to surpass China as the largest population within a few years. So it could be that India in the next few years could be not only the largest world population, but if it moves in a socialist direction, I mean, that would be a total game changer. And I think that's a big fear that the U.S. has is any sort of unity between India and China. And so I think that India is one of the countries that we got to be looking out for in the future that has so much revolutionary potential.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's obvious from all radical sides that the people are discontent in India.
They're
And
definitely, especially the federal government failing them. The BJP's pretty much failed India. Especially in COVID, the BJP, the federal government, the BJP has failed. Like the death toll is massive. It's just clusterfuck. And there's gonna be a lot of more discontent. It's gonna be so much discontent. It's just gonna be like revolutionary breeding. It's basically a revolutionary breeding ground. What country I see in Europe? I see one country in Europe in particular that I see that might go revolution. Only one, which has a large Marxist-Leninist party, would be Greece. I can see Greece going. I can see Greece going revolution, possibly in a decade or so, because the KKE is really strong.
Yes, they are.
It's strong. Historically, it's been strong, and now it's strong. Historically, the KKK has been strong for 50, 60 years, both underground and in public. So if Greece turns communist in Europe, it's going to have a bit of a hard time because one, there's going to be a thing called Turkey. There's a country called Turkey. So Turkey might invade Greece. And then at the same time, who knows, maybe because literally, and also Albania as well, because you've got two NATO countries. Albania and Turkey, even though Albania's army is non-existent, like literally Albania used to have a strong army under socialism, but now it doesn't. It's just a couple of soldiers. It's just ceremonial.
They have a lot of bunkers, though.
But they do have a lot of bunkers, yeah. That's that. Dank Hojas memes. You build bunker after bunker after bunker, and the more bunkers you build, the more revolutionary you are.
Joking aside, that was really like it was combined with a lot of dogmatism from Enver Hoxha, but like a genuine pressure from the imperialists on the state, and it was just I think it was misguided and very paranoid, but I still think that what the communists did in Albania was a positive thing overall.
Can I say something? I know what country that might turn revolutionary if it has the white material conditions. In Africa, I can see South Africa. There might be a second revolution.
Absolutely.
Because right now the ANC and the South African Communist Party have betrayed the people, and the only really Marxist-Leninist party there is the Economic Freedom Fighters. I would say they're pretty much the legitimate ML party, because the South African Communist Party and the ANC have pretty much betrayed the revolution, the Freedom Charter. Like they just betrayed it.
The ANC is steeped with corruption, and I have many comrades within the South African Communist Party, but the party and its leadership has failed. As well as I think the one good force inside the tripartite alliance is the South African Federation of Trade Unions, which is a part of the World Federation of Trade Unions, a Marxist-Leninist aligned trade union federation that was established after World War II by the Comintern. And I think that the activists inside the trade union are doing their best, but there's also divisions within that too. I think that South African society has really, really been betrayed by the ruling class of the new age, and it's sad. It
is sad. Like all that struggle to get rid of social apartheid, like the apartheid of race and the vicious racism and the viciousness, to basically still support a economic apartheid in the country. And trust me, poverty actually has been going, ever since the fall of apartheid, it's actually increased in South Africa, poverty. So it's just
And yes, Gordon, the ANC and the South African Communist Party and the South African Federation of Trade Unions are part of what was first a revolutionary alliance and then the governing alliance called the Tripartite Alliance. And so many of the ANC Congress people and ANC cabinet members are actually members of the Communist Party or of the Trade Union Federation running underneath the ANC label. Thoughts on the TKPML?
What's the TKP again? Is that the? Sorry, I don't know. I might sound like that might sound stupid, but what is the TKP?
Is the TKPML? Are they the ones a part of ICOR with the Marxist-Leninist Party of Germany?
But no, literally, the reason why Julius Malema found the EFF because he basically was delusional. He was the president of the youth wing of the ANC.
Yeah.
And he got so delusioned with the ANC, he just founded the EFF. Like he founded a new communist party in South Africa, and he's popular. It's not a small party. They support millions of votes. Yeah, so they're not a small fringe communist party. They're we're about the third largest party in South Africa. The only thing is, there's a party called, I don't know, Democratic Alliance is like, basically, I would call it, there's a party called Democratic Alliance. I just call it the National Party of South Africa with a different name.
Yeah, it's just a different name, and they allow, what they say for mixed race people there is colored people.
And it's tokenizing. It's tokenism.
Yeah, it's tokenization. And there's also another interesting thing about South Africa. The biggest union in South Africa, called NUMSA, the National Union of Metal and Steel, I think. Anyway, it's a union for the metallurgy workers. The biggest one. It has like 1.1 million members. It is the biggest part of the South African Federation of Trade Unions, and they split from the South African Federation of Trade Unions and even created a political party around it, which I am very skeptical of because I know these people and I'm like within their private groups and stuff, and they're really into Trotsky, but they claim to be Marxist-Leninist. But either
if you're into Trotsky, you might as well admit you're Trotskyist. Come on, boy.
Yeah.
Come on. You might as well say, "Oh, we're Trotskyists," but it's like that. It's like, oh, we read Trotsky, but we're still Marxist-Leninists, even though we agree with permanent revolution. We're not Trotskyists, boys.
Yo, comrades, I gotta dip out, but it's great to be able to hear this conversation. I agree. I really like the EFF as well in South Africa. I think Julius Malema is a very dynamic leader. He's a man of the people. He's somebody who a lot of people in South Africa really look up to. And I think it's a cool conversation. And Comrade Connor, I look forward to having a conversation soon about dialectics and Kabbalah.
That'll be awesome.
But it's an interesting topic. I've been reading, Hegel and also like some stuff from the Zohar, and it's just interesting to see the influence of
the biggest
dialectical thinking on.
The biggest lie Marx ever told was that dialectics came from Hegel. That's not true. Dialectics came from the Talmud in Judaism. So that'll be interesting to talk about.
But yeah, most definitely, Comrade. I'm gonna dip out, but peace out, Comrade Connor and Comrade Freaky. I think down in Australia. Shout out to Australia. That's what's up, comrades. Hope to join y'all soon. Peace.
Yeah, absolutely. Peace. So before we continue on South Africa, Falcone asked, "Have you heard of Ibrahim Kaipakaya? Ibrahim Kaipakaya."
I don't know that person at all.
Well, you'll see a lot of Turkish Maoist members of Partizan and the Communist Party of Turkey, Marxist-Leninist, holding up his portrait. He's a very, very young man who was the founder of the party, who was murdered by the Turkish state, very sadly. And and that is where that origin comes from. And they've been fighting in People's War since the 70s, and you know they do good work in defending the Turkish communities, or not the Turkish, the Kurdish communities out in the east. And I think that they're not bad people. I just disagree with their line. Gordon said, "Are there right-wing South African parties made up of natives?"
No, I don't
Yeah,
think so.
absolutely. Like the
Well, yeah, sorry.
the Freedom Party that is based out of the Zulu Nation. That's very right-wing.
Oh, yeah, that would make sense. Yeah, of course.
South Africa is still segregated. Yes, it is.
But yeah, it is definitely. Oh, it's yeah. Radicalist. What's radicalist mean? Sorry, I know that may sound like a stupid question, but is it mean like radical? Like it's the radical party? I mean, what the EFF is proclaiming is they want to implement the Freedom Charter, which basically is an ML charter. It's basically nationalized, like commanding heights of the economy onto the people, and like you know the drill. They want to implement the Freedom Charter because the EFF, I believe, is the true inheritors of the Freedom Charter. They're the true inheritors of the revolutionary spirit in South Africa because they want to implement the Freedom Charter properly in all its conditions.
And he also asked, "Do you believe the EFF is racialist?" No, I don't.
Racialist. No, it's not white. No, because it's literally. Let me say, it has Boers, it has Afrikaners, and it has a lot of people in it. It's not just made up of African people. You've got Boers in it. You've got Afrikaners in it. You know,
Anglo South Africans too. Yeah. And Gordon, you're wrong. You said dialectics came from Fitz. That's not true. Dialectics came about thousands of years ago, thanks to Rabbi. So you can thank the Rabbi for dialectics. Read the Talmud. It's thousands of years of over 2,000 rabbi exercising dialectics about the oral law of God. That's where dialectics came from. Hegel got his dialectics from Jews. There you go. That's why I love the Talmud so much. It speaks to me as a Marxist.
Anyways, I might as well get going, Comrade, because I probably gotta sleep and do stuff. Right. Anyways, absolutely. It's good talking to you. Thank you, Comrade, for having me on the stream, and please be sure to subscribe to me if you can, Comrade. Do you put a link in the channel?
I'll put a link in the channel after I wrap up here to yours for sure.
Sure thing. Anyways, I'll catch you later, comrades. It's been nice talking to you.
Nice talking to you too. Solidarity.
Solidarity.
That was cool. Love it when we have guests on. So Judeo-Communism is real. No, that's a Nazi term. That's an anti-Semitic term. Communism is not something that is born out of any faith. It's a very materialist ideology. It said Hegel got dialectics from the Talmud and Jews. Hegel wasn't a communist. Heck yeah, we will talk about indigenous things in the PCP sometimes. Definitely, I want to have you on to talk about that when we have time. And I'll link you in the channel too, or in the description after this too, because you did come on and added some good stuff to the conversation. Everyone who came on will get a shout. Their channels will get a shout. Yeah, this has been a really good stream. Had Comrade Freaky on talking about Aboriginal indigenous things and the history of Bougainville and Papua New Guinea, and then we talked about South Africa, potential revolutionary states, talked about the history of some things. This was a good stream. I'm glad. Not Jewish, cringe. It's okay if things are not Jewish, Courtesan. there are many beautiful things about the Gentile world and the Gentile thinking. Many of the greatest thinkers of our time are Gentiles. Many of the greatest cultures in history are from Gentiles. There's nothing wrong with non-Jewishness. You disagree with what Freaky said about Paul Morin? I don't like Paul Morin because he did something personally slimy to me, like on a personal level. Very slimy thing. Very disgusting thing. I don't trust him at all. He's not someone that I feel safe or comfortable around. He's a slimy guy. Very slimy guy. Yeah, so I think we're going to end the stream here. Oh, thank you so much, Maddie. I love you. Maddie's a friend of mine, a great comrade. Thank you so much for everyone who tuned in. I had a wonderful time. Like and subscribe. Share it with your friends. That can really help me out. Share it around for me. And, hopefully we can have more people on next time and have another great pre-Shabbas stream. So that was really fun. Solidarity, and have a good one. See you, Andrew. See you. Bye, everyone.